Welcome to another guide to FTL Multiverse. We've kinda passed the point of calling these videos guides for beginners. If we're trying to strategize and beat endgame bosses, it's not really something you can recommend to beginners anymore. But I'm definitely not an expert either. What would you call that? Let's say journeyman. You know what that is, right? Of course you do. Anyway, welcome to a journeyman's guide to FTL Multiverse. Sylvan is a hard boss, we've made that pretty clear. But he's not unstoppable, let alone... But a few people brought up a good point in my last video. Wither's cruiser is eons above the power level of almost any other ship in the game. And that my Jordans were fake. I can't be having people call me a fraud, not on my own channel. I fully believe that nearly any playable ship in Multiverse can put up a good fight against Sylvan, so to that end, we're fighting him again, but with a decidedly average cruiser. I'm Extra Shoddy. Welcome back to FTL Multiverse. The Multiverse Kestrel is the first ship you'll use in Multiverse, and while it's not bombastic, it doesn't struggle with anything in particular. No fluff, no gimmicks, just a plucky underdog with some good tools to get you through the early game. It's a perfectly cromulent ship, the kind that has a spirit that embiggens even the smallest captain. With it, we're going to take on one of Multiverse's most intimidating fights. Most ships have a hard time against Silven even with their complete loadout, so I'm going to make a handful of suggestions towards preparing for him. First and foremost, treat him like your final boss, and fight him as late as possible. He's guaranteed to show up in Sector 8, and he's mostly immune to the enemy fleet, so it's unlikely you'll miss your opportunity to fight him there. Secondly, and bear with me on this one, consider investing in a scrap recovery arm. 10% extra income for 50 scrap does not feel like a great investment, and buying it in Sector 1 or 2 can make your run significantly trickier. But think of it like training weights. You'll almost always be at a disadvantage against Sylvan, and you'll need to practice and prepare with that in mind. Figure out ways to mitigate damage, determine the best investments for your early game scrap, and get used to managing your ship under pressure. You'll not only gain more scrap overall by the time you reach Sector 8, you'll also be stronger mentally and physically because of it. Now for the hard part, fighting Sylvan. Most of what we've said in prior videos applies to a standard Sylvan fight, and one of his constants is having a method of dealing with his defense drone, Mark III.
Oh, hi Mark.
I'm sorry, that's actually Mark III. The most accessible way to deal with this is the internal upgrade, the Defense Scrambler, which costs 150 scrap and 10 drone parts. Not a small expense at any stage of a run. But dealing with Mark is only part of the problem. Most enemies in Multiverse have mercifully low engine levels, but Sylvan is one of the few with strong engines. You're going to miss a lot with your lasers and missiles, and there's only so much you can do to alleviate this, especially while his energy shield is intact. Beams and pinpoints can be surprisingly useful against Sylvan's energy shields, and if you can damage or disable the shields beforehand, you can actually get some good system damage as well. Since Sylvan has protected shields, you'll need an alternative method of disabling them, such as ions and fire damage. Then again, with missiles, any hull can be broken. Quite a few missiles also deal secondary damage via fire or breaches, so firing enough of them can cause lasting damage to Sylvan's ship if you're patient. So, what's our plan? First things first, we need to address Sylvan's weapons as soon as possible. I don't think a single playable ship in Multiverse is well suited to dealing with 6 staggered lasers indefinitely, so we need a way to stop or dodge them as long as we can. Cloaking and hacking is one of the most well-known system combinations in FTL, and you can dodge most of a weapon system's output just by alternating these systems. The biggest issue to this approach is the energy shield, which blocks hacking until you can break it, and fully regenerates after about roughly a minute on normal difficulty. We need a set of fast weapons consistently firing to break through them within the first minute and set up hacking on his weapons, which won't get disabled when his energy shield returns. From here, we can work to slowly break down his systems, crew, and eventually his hull. Fire weapons are our friend in this regard, and since most beams and lasers will have issues breaking through Sylvan's diamond-clad defenses, we circle back around to missiles. So, what do we have to work with? Well, for this run, we have some good missiles, some decent crew, cloaking, hacking, and not much else. The Light Burst laser from the Renegade collection does a decent job of breaking energy shields, but we're going to have a hard time consistently dealing with his ongoing boarding crew. I really wish we had drone control and some utility drones, but this is what we've got to work with. Alright, time to jump in. I've realized since the last video that I cannot commentate in real time whatsoever, so hopefully this works out a little better. Sylvan begins the fight with 3 bonus crewmates boarding by default, and then brings over 2 elite boarders, and then 3 boarding drones. This makes it an even matchup crew-wise on our own ship, but Sylvan still has a full crew to man his own. We don't have the crew advantage here, but that should be fine as long as hacking and mind control don't hit anything important. That is less than ideal. We're able to dodge most of his first laser volley, and our cloaking lets us dodge the second afterwards. Our one stroke of luck during all of this is that his elite crewmates have jumped straight into our medbay, which lets us face them relatively safely. Keeping our combat crewmates healthy during this fight is incredibly important, as our crew will have very little downtime. Medbot dispersal provides some passive healing, but it won't be enough to keep up with Sylvan's assault on its own. A clone bay may have actually been the better choice for this fight. After taking down Sylvan's energy shields, we can start hitting Sylvan's weapons both with our missiles and hacking. The missile does no damage to the protected system, but starting a fire there is going to slowly cause system damage, and the hacking works twofold, locking the room off from would-be repairmen, and letting us cycle between hacking and cloaking to dodge weapons. Sadly, we didn't do this in time to prevent the latest laser volley, and we're really struggling to keep our cloaking online. On the bright side, fire damage is putting in a lot of work against Sylvan's weapons, as well as his returning boarding crew, so our hull isn't in immediate danger. Sadly, I can't say the same for our floral on shields, Magmar. He's been mind-controlled, has started damaging our shields alongside the enemy drones, and no longer has an exit plan.
Door stuck! Door stuck! Please! I beg you!
Magmar the Floral is now dead. One room over, our weapons are heavily damaged. Our shields are not doing too great thanks to the latest boarding party, but Sylvan's weapons aren't doing much better. In another stroke of luck, Sylvan's poor priority management has put his boarding crew in a burning room trying to reach the teleporter, and arrive in our ship a little more than just half dead. Meanwhile, Clarence the MFK has turned turncoat yet again, and murks our Separatist NG with the help of our boarding drone. Block the NG is now dead, and without intervention, Clarence is soon to follow. But some desperate door busting from himself, Kirkner, Johnson, and Mrs. Booga let him tag out for some much-needed backup. On Sylvan's ship, the fire in his weapons has also started taking out would-be repairmen. This is giving us a tiny window to try and fix our own weapons, which we really need to end this fight. Since Sylvan's weapons are completely broken, we're not as worried about our evade chance and shields, but we should still get them fixed up in case things get out of hand again. This is where our secondary upgrades are paying dividends. How many breaches has our breach sealant taken care of? After about 9 minutes in real time, Sylvan is the only remaining crew on his own ship. We're still struggling to take care of his drones, but we can finally start focusing on our own offense. We've actually dealt significant damage to Sylvan's hull simply by using our missiles, meaning that by the time we've broken through his shields with our fire, we've just about broken his hull completely. Sylvan is finally defeated. In hindsight, I probably should have sold my scrap hand before the fight. I could have afforded better doors. And I really ought to have gone after hacking our mind control sooner. I wonder if Magmar or Block could have survived. We beat Sylvan with the MV Kestrel in about 10 minutes of real time, and roughly 4.5 minutes of in-game time. For comparison, it took 6.5 minutes of real time to defeat all 3 phases of the flagship afterwards. Super bosses and roguelikes always have an air of mystery around them. I think a lot of Multiverse players view beating Sylvan as either an unattainable achievement or an important milestone, but if you ask me, it's both. Part of the fun of roguelikes is turning what you find into its own strategy, but another part is planning towards specific goals. One of the things base FTL did well was the flagship fight. It was always a difficult fight, but knowing you'd have to face it gave you a reason to consider your loadout whenever you got new options. You weren't guaranteed flak or burst lasers, and that's what made the fight interesting. You're not guaranteed everything you need to make a fight against Sylvan feasible. There's no guarantee you'll meet the best crewmates, there's no guarantee you'll have what you need when you find important events, and there's absolutely no guarantee you'll find the Hector Megamart. But if you have a goal in mind, you can start paying attention to the items and crewmates you're offered, and then you can begin to plan around them. That's how you can topple giants. Or at least end weapons trafficking. Thanks for watching. I took a break from working on FTL videos to make my last Noida video. If you liked my other stuff, give it a watch. I put my whole bingle into it. With any luck, my Nexus video should be coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Stay classy.